Everything you want to know about interest, but we're afraid to ask. First of all, the formula for interest, the simplest one, it's called the simple interest formula, is interest equals P R T. And I will jot this down. Interest equals the principal. I'm guessing it's PAL? No, PLE, sorry. Is it? Which one is it? Let me help me out. Well, we're not talking about Miss Lopez here, but it is PAL, by the way. It's principal times the rate times the time. Interest equals principal times rate times time. Okay, and interest pretty much makes the world go round. First things first, children, is that there is basically good interest and there is bad interest. The good interest is money that you get for having money, okay? Money you get for pudding, not pudding as in eating pudding, but pudding. Is there 2 T's or 1 T in pudding?
There's 2.
Or whatever financial institution you like. Maybe it's a credit card, maybe it's a credit place or whatever. But if you have money, okay, if you have money, what you can do is if you've got $20,000 you happen to have saved up, you give it to the bank and say, here bank, I'll let you hold on to this, and the bank will say, thank you for that. I will give you a certain amount of money every year for letting me have that, you keep that money. How can a bank do that? A bank does that because the bank will take the money that you put in and they will loan it out to people and charge interest, and that's where bad interest is money that you have to pay because you borrowed money. You have to pay because you had to borrow. Okay. And the way that a bank makes money is that it gives you less of a percent. Well, let's just take a hypothetical. Let's say you put $10,000 in the bank, and the bank will give you 2% interest, which is 10,000 times 2%, which ends up being what? 0.0002. The bank will give you $200 a year for letting them use your $10,000. But on the flip side, the bank will take your $10,000 and loan it to somebody maybe that wants to buy a car, and they will charge that person maybe 10% interest, which means they're going to take my word for it, they will charge you $1,000 for you taking some of their money and using it to buy. So the bank ends up making in that year the difference of that, which is $800 from your $10,000. Okay, so there's always a difference. The bank will never give you as much money for your interest as they will charge you to borrow that same amount of money. Okay, so that's why right now they talk about house loans. House loans right now are, because they're huge loans, house loans right now are real close to 4%. Try to do this math with me, and here's how interest works. This is bad, by the way, we're talking good today. So, if you borrow, let's say, anybody, give me a, let's say how much money would you have to borrow to buy a house? Alex,
$100,000. $342,000. That's what my dad's selling it for.
Yeah. $200,000.
Yes. And $2.
We have to write this down.
Write this down. Okay, you're buying, let's say you're buying a $250,000 house, you happen to have $50,000, so you have to borrow from the mortgage company, the banks usually, sometimes banks do these, sometimes they don't. You have to borrow $200,000. Okay, now that's a lot of money and the bank's gonna charge you, this. They're charging you 4% per year. Because your mortgage, you're not gonna be able to pay $200,000 back in 1 year. So mortgages usually go either in 15 years or 30 years. Let's say it's a 30-year mortgage. Okay, that means you get 30 years to pay back this $200,000. But because it's given you so long to keep that money, you are paying 4% every year. Interest equals the principal times the rate times the time. So we don't know what our interest is yet. The amount you borrow, that's the principal. This is the principal. Need a drink? Okay, so I borrowed $200,000, that's my principal. My rate is 4%, so I'll change that to 0.04. And I am borrowing it for 30 years. Now notice, I am only calculating what my interest is. I'm not figuring out how much I borrowed, I'm just figuring out. So let's do this math. 200,000 times 0.04 is $8,000 times 30 years. At the end of 30 years, what 8,000? That's 4 zeros with a 24. Interest equals 24 with 4 zeros. So when you go to the bank and borrow $200,000, you're not paying the bank back just the $200,000. You are also paying the bank back. This seems to be an awful lot. Did I do something wrong? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 32. I guess it's right. You are paying the bank back the principal plus the interest you have to pay the bank back $440,000. And divide that up amongst 30 years of payments. How many months per year? 12. So you get to take your $440,000 and you're going to divide that by 360 because that's how many months 30 years would be. And that is how much your payment, principal and interest, is for your house. That doesn't include your real estate taxes, which usually get lumped in there too. So you end up with this. What is this? 360, 0, 3, 14, 50,000. How many times does 360 go into 800? Twice? Yeah, it's going to be this repeater too. You're going to pay $1,222 a month.
Wait, why do we divide by 360?
Because this is how many months 30 years is. This is your monthly payment per month. $1,200 per month. Or if you did it by weeks, what would that be? $300 a week, $305 a week. But the thing is, this is bad because your house isn't worth $440,000. Your house is only worth that $250,000, but you still have to pay $440,000, and that's just so that you can borrow that money. So the bank ends up making, in 30 years, the bank ends up making that much money, which is kind of a good deal for them, I suppose.
So in all reality, you don't want to borrow.
In all reality, yes. Never do you want to borrow money. Ever. Caroline?
So in the problem, we're just gonna give us the.
Oh, I haven't got to that. This isn't even part of what we're doing.
Oh.
This is just getting you to think, Same thing with cars. When you see commercials for cars, okay, a lot of times they'll say 60 or 70 months with no interest. Okay, that means you can borrow the money and not have to pay any interest, which is a pretty good deal. Because interest is a lot. Sometimes houses are, this is a very cheap interest rate. The mortgage rates, the borrowing rates have been cheap for the last 3 or 4 years, but this has been as high as like 12 or 20 or 18%, which would make this like 3 times higher. This would make this like $700,000 or $600,000. Interest rates right now, and you hear about them. You'll hear on the radio about the talks about the Fed trying to keep the interest rates low because they know if interest rates stay at this, a lot more people are going to be buying houses. So they're trying to keep the whole housing market, everything going by keeping these rates low. But eventually it's going to all catch up for us. But that's bad. These are all bad interest stuff. You don't ever want to pay interest because it's really money you're just paying. You're just really giving your money away. You're not getting anything for it except the use of somebody else's money. It doesn't improve the value or increase the value of anything you bought. Now, Palmer.
How do you find out the interest rate?
Of what?
Like, say you put money in bank and it depends on how much you put in, what's the interest rate? How do you find that?
The bank will tell you. It's different. It's different for different banks, but it's not. Lately, it's only been like 1 or 2%. It's been very, very low because it doesn't. The bank. The reason why it's low is because if a bank has to loan you the money, if the bank loans you the money at 4%, okay, if it loans out its money at 4%, it can't give you 4% for keeping it in there. Otherwise, it doesn't make any money. So it's been like at 1%, 2%, which is terrible, absolutely terrible. Kendall?
I have a question.
I understand. When you put your hand up in the air, I knew that you probably had a question.
When you are like paying off the house, can you like move and then not have to pay off the rest?
Well, and that's the problem is when you move, you have to sell your house. Now, the nice thing is, when you if you pay off your mortgage early, you don't have to pay the interest for those. Like if I paid my house off in 15 years, I don't have to pay off the 15 years of interest if I paid off my mortgage early, I would get 15 years of $8,000 off. Okay? Because it only goes by years. And if you pay it off early, then you don't have to pay the interest for the years that you didn't actually borrow it for. So you can pay off things early but not have to pay all that interest. But the problem is, and that's where people are today in our society, okay, the banks were giving out money to people who couldn't afford it. So when they couldn't make their payments, okay, then they had to try to sell their house. Because the only way for you to get up and move, Kendall, is for you to sell your house, and hopefully you make back what's left in your principal. You know, if you only have $180,000, if you can sell your house for $100,000 and you still have to pay $80,000, you pay the bank your $80,000, you still have $20,000, you can go buy another house and put that down on whatever. But in order for you to move, you have to sell your house to get the money back out of it. And what a lot of people do, they can't get people to buy their house.
They rent it.
No, well, and if they can't rent it, and they still can't make the payments, they call it walk away from it, which means the bank technically, until you pay off this mortgage, the bank really owns your house, really, technically. So if you just got in your car and drove off,
Bye-bye.
it's the bank's house, and the bank has to try to figure out what to do with it because it doesn't want to lose money. But if you almost had it paid off, it's going to make money. But if you owe more, you know, house values came down so much that most people owe more money on their house than their house is worth, so they'll never be able to sell it for what they have to pay for it. It's a big messy. That's really why our economy tanked, especially here in Kendall County, because people were building houses. Phil, write-offs. But now we're talking about taxes. Write-offs, the government, well, I don't want to even get into taxes, but the government lets you take off, when we pay taxes, the government will let you take off things like things that you buy that they say you don't have to pay tax on, or you can take it off of your taxes. You know, things that you use for your business. You know, farmers, you buy a big piece of machinery. You know, at the end of the year when you get your checks or whatever for whatever it is, you can take off the cost of machinery before you have to pay tax on that money. So it's kind of write-offs are usually good. We haven't got to the good part what we're talking about today is the good part of interest. And good interest, children, here's where things get complicated with good interest. I'm gonna give you the sheet. Oh, Taylor is awake still. Some of you actually have one that's stapled together, the rest of you not. And I don't know how far we'll get in this, but. Some of you probably have money in the bank, don't you?
Yeah, my mom's making. I knew that. Yeah. I have like
I got a $500 loan for 2018.
Economics. You should have two papers. Should have two. It's interesting nonetheless. There are two different types of interest that we're talking about today. One of them is this. One is simple because it's simple, and the other one is compound mostly because it's compound. But look at problem number 1 on your paper there. You invest $1,000 in a savings account that earns 3% interest for 3 years. Find the amount of simple interest that you will have at the end of the 3-year period. The simple interest was that formula that I gave you where principal equals rate, interest equals principal times rate times time. So the answer to the first problem is going to be very easy because we just take the principal of $1,000 multiplied by the rate of 3%, which is 0.03 times 3 years. So how much, did I not give you one?
Yeah, we only got.
Just the front and the back of one? Congratulations, you are the winner. So figure that out. How much interest are you going to make in 3 years? 3% is nothing. I'm guessing 3% is $30 for 3 years, $90? Is that what you got?
Oh, sure.
It's 1,000 times 0.09 if you multiply those two together, which gives you 0.0009. You make, now listen to this, that doesn't mean you only have $90 in the bank. That means you have the $90 plus the $1,000 you started with. You now have $1,090 in the bank. Thank you very much. But it's $90 you didn't have to start with. I mean, it's free money. You didn't have to work for it. You just put your money there and said, hey, bank, use my money, right? So you made, the answer to question number 1 is, or letter A is $90, and letter B is, this is A, this is B. Raise your hand if you're confused at that. We just found interest, we just did principal what? What, Alex? What? You don't know how we found 1,000 times 0.03 times 3?
You can
3 years? Huh?
What was the answer?
The answer for part A is $90. You made $90 in interest. Letter B said, how much do you then have in the bank? When you take your interest and you add it to the principal, you have $1,090 in the bank. Started with. The problem is you're trying to look at that screen and look up here.
I know.
Well, maybe you need to force yourself, Wilmer, not to look at that. All right, what's problem number 2? It says you invest $1,000 interest for 1 year. Wait, how is that different than the first one?
They're not in 1 year. 1 year.
1 year.
For 1 year.
So
All right, well then for 2A, we know how much for 1 year. How much would be interest for 1 year?
30.
$30. And 2B is
Wait, this is under
No, it's not under compound, is it?
Page
Oh,
2.
Sorry, where does compound come in?
On the next page.
It's just compound.
No, it's not compound, hold on,
It's just compound interest.
I know, but it's doing simple interest first. Yeah, let's just write that down. I don't wanna, you got this, after 3 years, you get $1,090, okay? That is simple interest. Write this down. Under compound, what happens is this. Compound interest means that after every year, the interest gets added to principal to find the following year's interest. And that won't make any sense to you until we talk about it, so just write that down. After we talk about it, you will be wide awake and excited to hear this. I need a new board though, can I do a new board?
No.
Yes.
To find what?
To find following year's interest, that's very clear to me. Write this down here. Simple. We did $1,000 at 3%, right? This is year number 1, year number 2, year number 3. If I'm making 3%, how much interest did I make each year? I made $30, right? How much did I have in the bank after this first year? $1,030, $1,060. At the end of 3 years, I had $1,090, right? That's what we just figured out. You with me?
Sure. What's the second column?
Interest. With simple interest, children, you will make the same amount of interest every year. It does not change. Year interest dollars. First year $30 interest, $1,030. Second year you got another $30 interest, $1,060. Third year you got $30, $1,090. With compound interest, what happens is this. Compound interest. Here's our new table with a new color that you will be able to see and enjoy to no end. Still $1,000 at 3%, but it's compounded. It is compounded annually. That means at the end of year number 1, if I do 3%, I still make $30 and I still have $1,030 in the bank. But here is where things go horribly awry. For the next year, rather than just using the $1,000 that I did here and keep getting $30 in interest every year, I use the new amount I have in the bank because I had $30 in interest. At the end of the year, they give you that interest, they put that interest in your bank account, then they use this new one to find out how much interest you make for the next year. So instead of finding just interest on the original $1,000, I now find the 3% interest on $1,030, which means I'm going to make a little bit more money here. Which means I actually make, in the second year, I make $30.90. Okay, I earned just a little bit more interest because they took my interest, added it to my principal, and used that new number to find my interest for the next year. So now I have $1,060.90 in the bank. Now for the third year, I have to take 3% of this number here, which means 1,060.9 times 0.03 is what? 2718.3. Oh, look at this. No, that ain't right. What did I do wrong? 2718.3. That isn't right.
Is it, it's 90 cents.
Okay, what's the multiply for that?
Oh, it's 3 decimals. $31.82. Which means now I have $1,091.82. Which means with, would I do something wrong?
No, how like when you multiply like the 3 times 31 how you change the 30 to 91? Like,
Wait, so point to me where you at?
like on the graph.
Here?
No, so like yeah, both of those. The last two.
I took $30.90 and added it to what I had at the end of the year before.
Oh.
Then I took $31.82 and added it to, oh, I didn't do that right, did I?
I thought you
Yeah, I did.
multiplied.
No, I didn't.
No,
2.7, this is like 72 cents, right?
And then it's 1,092 cents.
Is it 92?
Yeah.
Okay. It's been a long day. So you can see with compound interest, after 3 years, you made $2.72 more cents that you did not make over here, which to you doesn't sound like a lot. When you start talking about like hundreds of thousands of dollars, compound interest over in the end actually ends up earning you tons and tons more money. Kendall, you have a question, I know that.
yeah. Where did you get 3%?
Given,
It's always 3%.
No, it'll tell you.
it'll tell you what the percent is, could be 4%,
Oh.
could be 12%. But see, the difference is this, after 30 years, I'm still making $30 in interest, simple interest, no matter what, okay? In compound interest, you could end up in the, you're probably gonna be in the maybe hundreds or even thousands of dollars after 30 years, because it keeps adding and accumulating, and it grows what we call kind of exponentially. Look at this, between these 2 years, how much did I gain? I gained 90 cents, right? This year though, I ended up gaining $2.72. And the next year it's probably gonna be $5. And then the next year it's probably gonna be 15, and then it'll be 45. At the end of 10 years, you end up in the thousands of dollars. You can't see it right now because it starts slow, but in the end, it keeps growing forever in a big way there. Josh?
I was wondering if it had anything to do with like stocks.
No, stocks is a whole different ballgame. Stocks all depends on how many people buy things. No, interest has nothing to do with stocks whatsoever. I mean, they're not even remotely related in any way, shape, or form.